Hey guys, Frank here. Today we'll check out some stories from us/AskReddit. Here's the first. People over 35, what's something you genuinely miss that younger generations will probably never experience? Internet before corporate got hold of it. Was truly a Wild West era. Finding a magazine with something you love on it, a band or an actor or whatever. Now if you love something you can immediately consume every piece of media on that thing, which is also cool, but I'll always miss turning the corner at the grocery store and seeing that Spin is doing an all-punk issue, or the Rolling Stone issue after Hunter Thompson died, and being like frick yes. Edited to add, and the smell. The ink plus the paper and the perfume samples, incredible. That feeling of not being watched, recorded. The excitement of your new favorite song playing on the radio or MTV. When everyone watched a TV show at the same time in their individual households and then came together to talk about it the next day. Pre-streaming services days. Commercials still sucked, but there was something magical about it. Slamming the phone down to end a phone call. Toy stores. Nothing beat the aisles and aisles of stuff at Toys R Us. Creating my own ringtone on Nokia Composer. Learning pop culture history from VH1. We didn't have to pay an exorbitant amount of money for concert tickets. Living my Coyote Ugly dream, dancing on bars thinking I'm hot shit but likely being an absolute embarrassment to myself and there being no video evidence of it. Being able to be unreachable. It's hard to really get alone time or time to relax when you have a phone in you all the time and you can always be reached. Internet being a brief thing you did, not a thing weaved constantly in your life. Going on AIM and chatting with friends felt like actual chats and brief for 30 minutes. You'd hang out in real life, the internet was just like watching TV. It was just something small and neat. Everything is so digital now. I have a friend who has kids and they like hang out online. When we were in middle school and high school, we'd hang out in real life and only talk online as like a separate thing. It's probably how people in the 70s and 80s chatted on the phone later in the day with friend. Lack of knowing what's going on. The 24/7 news cycle is one of the worst things to happen to our society. Why do I need to know about a murder in Texas when I live on the East Coast? Constantly being hit with terrible, horrific news 24/7. It's just killing everyone's mental health. Going to Radio Shack for electrical components and kits. Everything is online now. Here's story 2. Serious, what's the worst way you know someone has died? Attention. Serious tag notice jokes, puns, and off-topic comments are not permitted in any comment, parent or child. Parent comments that aren't from the target group will be removed, along with their child replies. Report comments that violate these rules. Posts that have few relevant answers within the first hour, and posts that are not appropriate for those serious tag will be removed. Consider doing an AMA request instead. Thanks for your cooperation and enjoy the discussion. I am a bot, and this action was performed automatically. Please contact the moderators of this subreddit if you have any questions or concerns. Someone I know personally, my aunt. Bled out after her dialysis access port in her arm ruptured. The worst because those few minutes alone had to have been terrifying. I've watched multiple people die of cirrhosis. End-stage alcoholism is horrifying. Yellow and delirious and thirsty. My best friend was murdered. The guy pushed him in the back and when he was on the ground jumped on his head. The damage was so severe all they could do was keep him under until he died. My cousin was murdered by her nutjob boyfriend. He stabbed her 36 times. My cousin and her family were struck by a semi after they pulled to the side of the road to change her son's diaper. They didn't know there was a baby in there until after the family asked if he was okay. Absolutely the saddest funeral I've ever seen. RIP. We used to live in an apartment building that had one of those elevators with kind of an accordion gate that you had to close yourself on the inside, and then at some point a self-closing door had been added on the outside. The elevator wouldn't go until both were closed. Well, there was a 7-year-old boy living in the building before we lived there who was playing hide-and-seek one day and decided to hide in between the inner gate and outer doors. Somebody called the elevator from another floor, and he basically got smushed as the elevator went up. Ironically, the self-closing outer doors were probably added for safety reasons. Edited for typo. Guy I knew from younger years walked home from the bar rather than drive after having a couple. A drunk driving a pickup truck ran a red light, broadsided a sedan with an elderly driver who careered into the pole holding up the traffic signals. My friend was between the car and the pole. Died when the car was pulled off the pole, but was awake and aware, knowing he would not survive when the car was removed. He was a wonderfully kind and considerate human, and it is so unfair that he died such a horrid death. Woman in our family went to the doctor for body pain. Doctor put her down as opiate seeking, and that was that. Once that was on her chart, no doctor ever sought out any diagnosis, even though she went to many trying to find out why she was in severe pain all the time. 2 years later she bumped her head and hurt her neck. One X-ray of her now broken neck revealed extensive bone cancer. She passed away a few days later. A friend met the love of his life, and they got married. She introduced him to fentanyl. Taught him to shoot up dope. When they ran out of money and she got fired for being dope sick, she hung herself with a dog leash. He was the one who found her. He sunk into darkness for a year using more and more opiates, and he hung himself with the same leash a year to the day later. No brutality I know compares with death by total despair. There was a guy here that was up north, went outside of the cabin he was staying in and got ambushed by not one, but 2 polar bears. Apparently they told the guy's family not to buy a casket because there simply wasn't enough of him left to bury. My Mill's cousin and his wife were in a car accident. They couldn't get out and the car caught on fire, so they burned to death. The funeral was closed casket. There was a video on YouTube of a guy who recorded his final moments while he sinks to the bottom of the ocean. My dad had ALS. He could still talk kinda, but he was losing a lot of his function. My mom was checking his blood oxygen every day, and it was in the 70s apparently. They decided it was probably broken or something and never mentioned it to anyway. I think it was just denial. He had a heart attack and died next to my mom on the couch while the home nurse was changing his diaper. My dad was a sailor for 30 years. He never asked for anyone's help, ever. He was 6 feet 2 inches and 220 most of his life. He died knowing his body was failing him, as a stranger changed his diaper. I guarantee he would have told me to just shoot him if he thought that's how he was going to go out. Motorcyclist that I saw die from decapitation. A farmer put a bale in the bale buster and it got hung up somehow. Instead of using the loader to push it down, he jumped on it while the machine was running. The bale came loose and the bale went through the buster and he followed. He was shredded into pieces. Here's story 3. Forget elephants in the room. What's a blue whale in the room you've seen go awkwardly unaddressed? Little tinfoil meth pipe being casually passed around at a friend of a friend's backyard barbecue. It was an unassuming McMansion suburb and everyone there was mid-30s and kinda nerdy, so it was baffling. Just about every time there is a corporate meeting where HR assures everyone it's a judgment-free, safe space, yet the heads of departments are in there too. Everyone knows that they are being overworked and under-recognized, but anyone saying that is putting a huge target on their back by embarrassing their boss in an open forum, and the idea of a consequence-free acknowledgement of the boss demanding work over weekends or yelling at staff publicly destroying morale is something everyone knows, but no one mentions in front of them. I worked as a nurse in operating theaters. The anesthetist was having an affair with the scrub nurse and the surgeon was the anesthetist's wife who knew about the affair. That was a very awkward case. Edited to add, nothing went down. It was a routine case with no problems, but the psychological tension could be cut with a scalpel. When your boss clearly shows up drunk to a Zoom meeting and people are like, technical difficulties. On a global level, the current ongoing collapse in biodiversity. We are causing a mass extinction and it's barely even talked about. It's at least as big a problem as climate change, which gets way more press. I think it's ignored because seriously addressing it might be even harder than climate change, and we are utterly failing at that. Saw my high school friends pass around a tin of Altoids with a white powder in it with a rolled up $1 bill as they all took turns going to the bathroom with it. I was so naive, I thought they were snorting crushed up Altoids. The Epstein client lists. They think this similar ship with Diddy got us distracted enough to forget. FSU shooter from last month. Correct me if I am wrong, but it was a white guy who shot and killed 2 Hispanic men who were workers and did not go to FSU. I believe he shot 5 other individuals as well, but like the story is just gone. Maybe it is just because I do not live in Tallahassee, but I know someone who called her mom from the student union or cafeteria thinking it was the last call she would ever make. The fact that the US government is trying to slash the Endangered Species Act because of colossal bioscience's so-called dire wolves. Like everyone's roasting the heck out of them for their grift or making analogies to Jurassic Park, but nobody's pointing out the more insidious implications of the project. With the flimsy excuse that we can just sort of recreate species if they go extinct, they are fighting to be allowed to cause untold ecological damage without consequence. I live in Canada, where you just don't really see guns very often, especially not open carry in a city. While working in a drugstore in a city, some old guy came in with a massive rifle strapped to his back and everyone kinda just pretended not to see it. It was super weird. I think it might have been an air rifle for biathlon or something, but a lot of drugstore employees in Canada probably can't tell things apart from far away. I know I can't and was never completely sure, lol. I just saw him walk past management on his way in and they clearly saw it and said nothing, so no way I was gonna be the one. Nobody mentioned it later either. America has taken no time to mourn their COVID dead. It's fucking wild. Mine is more like several elephants that people are still trying to ignore. We have had several issues in our department. Injuries, sickness during rehearsals. Rampant sexual harassment and discrimination. Verbal abuse out the wazoo. It's all been brushed under the rug. People have gotten yelled at and abused further for bringing anything up, or for even posting jokes on social media. All because our department is getting a brand new building that was just built and they are afraid that any little thing will cause them to lose it. I'm at the point where I believe we don't deserve that new building with all the things that have been done or covered up. We deserve to be shut down. The FSU shooting last month. A white student, Phoenix Igna, killed 2 Hispanic workers, Robert Morales and Teru Chaba, and wounded 5 others. It's like it vanished from the news. My cousin at FSU hid in a classroom, terrified. Why no motive talk? White supremacist views noted, then silence. When 2 people in the group clearly have something going on but they keep acting like we are all blind, like babe your eyes do the heart emoji thing every time he talks PLS. We can kick the orange man out, but we still have about 70 million people in the US that are laughably easy to brainwash and take advantage of. It's not going to be easy at all to fix. We need to start with the functional literacy rate and critical thinking skills, and unfortunately grown adults don't like to be told they aren't as smart as a 5th grader. Here's story 4. What is the most surreal, this can't be real moment you've ever experienced? My son and I were riding the train in Chicago. He said, "Dad, don't you have a friend from Chicago, maybe we will see him." I serious doubt it, son, Chicago is huge. He got on the next stop. Elephants wandering around just outside of my Midwest town. I figure they must have gotten out of a train car to walk around, but looking over and seeing 4 full-grown elephants was surreal. I had an incredible urge to go to my employee's house. It was weird and overwhelming. I called my mom thinking I lost my ship and she said to trust my gut, so I went. It felt weird. Who wants their boss showing up after hours? When I got to his house I heard a faint "help me" coming from inside the house. I kicked the door in, went inside, and the dude had a stroke 24 to 48 hours prior to my arrival. He was just laying on the floor and would have rotted there had I dismissed that crazy urge. I once hugged a stranger on the street because we started crying at the same time for totally different reasons, then we laughed like idiots for 10 minutes straight. It was dangerously freezing temps. I had just gotten off work and was broke, was $1 short to get on the bus to get home, and it was too cold and icy to walk home safely. My rich dad wouldn't send me the $1 I needed for bus fare. No reason, he just didn't want to. I went to the library to warm up and try to figure out what to do. Grabbed a random library book, opened to a random page, and there was a folded up dollar bill inside. Not as crazy as some of the other stories here, but I was very grateful. I was born in Lebanon during the war in the 80s, had a best friend which I lost track of because we were always running from bomb shelter to bomb shelter, from city to city. I migrated to Canada in '89, and when I got to college, I met that friend again. We were in the same college in the same city in Canada. I didn't recognize him, but he recognized me because my face never really changed. It was the perfect example of "the world is too small." I got a postcard in the mail in 2018. It was sent by my parents when they visited China in 1997. I was dumbfounded and thought I was being pranked. It just took a very long time to get delivered. Getting a phone call offering me a job I didn't even remember applying for right when I was about to give up looking. I thought it was a prank at first. I got a message from a stranger saying, "You saved my life." Turns out I'd responded kindly to their random forum post a year prior. I once ran into my childhood neighbor halfway across the world in a random alley in Tokyo. Went to my GF's family's place for Thanksgiving. Like 30 to 40 people are there. As the food is finally ready, everyone gathers around and they bring out a flag and all start singing the Pledge of Allegiance. Legit thought this is fucking weird. Turns out they were pranking me and they got me good. I walked into a bookstore, picked up a book, and it opened to a page with my full name written inside it. In someone else's handwriting. Watching the doctor do the brain death tests on my 41-year-old sister after she had a spontaneous brain bleed Thanksgiving morning. She had huge beautiful blue eyes, and watching them pry her eyelids open and moving her head to see if they would move, but just staying locked forward was haunting. One time, I saw a woman on the street drop her phone, and 5 different people around her all reached down at the exact same time like a perfectly choreographed scene. It didn't feel real. Seeing Saturn with my own eyes through my telescope. I cried, it was so beautiful. Still really cannot believe it. Here's story 5. What was a don't get paid enough for this your *T moment? I mean, I was paid minimum wage at the time, but I worked at a box store as a warehouse stock person. Someone completely destroyed one of the toilet stalls. Shit everywhere. I was asked to clean it. I was like, LOL, no. We have overnight cleaners. Mark the stall out of service and they can deal with it. So that's what they did. No demands or repercussions to me whatsoever. I was like, dude, this is like biohazard level shitstorm. I'm not cleaning that up no matter how much you're paying me, LOL. Store manager asked me and a few co-workers, minimum wage workers, why we didn't chase after a customer that walked out of our bookstore without paying for a $100 textbook. Not only is that dangerous, but against company policy for virtually all retail stores in the USA because it's unsafe. Note that it's also against policy for our particular bookstore in the employee handbook. I work on diesel trucks for a living. Truckers are the nastiest people on the planet. Sometimes we make drivers get their trucks detailed before we will work on them because they are so disgusting. It's unreal how gross they are. Worked at a big car rental company at the Phoenix airport as a manager, and the leadership didn't like me. I was pointing out fraud from agents and calling them out for not addressing it. Agents would lie and trick people into charges and then yell at me when returning. They moved me to a Wednesday through Sunday shift 3 p.m. to midnight. My second week on the schedule, we were looking at rentals versus cars available in a meeting with 20 people, and we were going to be like 400 cars short on a shift I was the only manager on. The director looked at me and said, "Have fun with that," and laughed super hard. After the meeting, I walked to a computer, emailed my resignation to HR and dipped. I briefly worked at Jersey Mike's Subs after I lost a full-time job. IDK why I took it, since the pay and hours were absolutely garbage, but they have the steak and chicken meat in boxes in the freezer. This lady decided to yell at me, a big guy mind you, for going straight from handling the box to cooking the subs, even though I washed my hands and changed my gloves as I was supposed to, and she did it while the store was packed. At the time I was also doing DoorDash, which paid significantly more than that job, so I just used the tongs that we used to grab the meat, grabbed a slab of the chicken and threw it at her, and then I just left. I felt so satisfied in that moment that I didn't care about getting fired since the job sucked anyways. I think that whenever a customer leaves trash in a cart, I have to attend to. This old lady threw a pickle at me and it stuck on my chest. "That was rude, Susan. I didn't even take your order. I was making the sandwiches. The ticket didn't say no pickle meanie." A McDonald's regional manager I knew once told within earshot of other workers that anytime someone quits, she knows they will be back within a month. I was like frick it and quit a week later when she asked me to work openings at 3 a.m. because she trusted my work so much and I did a good job. I knew she was lying out of her ass and thought so low of us that we would amount to nothing. When someone's screaming at your face at the cash register. Worked in a grocery store as a cashier when I was 17. When I saw people stealing, I always called a supervisor to chase after them. Ain't no way I was heading for that trouble or fight with a thief. I worked for an attorney. It was just the two of us in the office. He came in one morning freaking out because something was wrong with the computer at his house. We turned on the answering machine and locked up the office. Took me to his house. I spent 2 hours sitting on the edge of his bed reformatting his hard drive because he had got into some corn-site loop that he had to get rid of before his girlfriend came home from work. Gross. After that, he started viewing his corn videos in the office. Even grosser. Working in daycare, have a college degree, made a hair above minimum wage. Over COVID, the toy shed in the play yard had been taken over by some junkies. Human waste, trash, and needles everywhere. Management expected us to clean it out. We said heck no, and they had to pay a special biohazard cleanup crew to deal with it. There's a reason I don't work in childcare anymore. Pretty much all of my time in retail. Minimum wage, first job at an amusement park. Tiny me trying to change a giant trash bag on a rainy day, when suddenly it springs a leak and I'm doused in trash juice. Simultaneously, a group of passers-by started excessively catcalling and verbally harassing me. I was done, walked out mid-shift. I was flying if pap smears for some medical company in a cargo plane when the landing gear failed to extend. I was in basically about 1,800 feet forward visibility of fog on the approach and had to do a gear-up landing. I managed on the last attempt before exhausting my fuel to get the mains down, but the nose wasn't fully extended. On approach I got the approach lights and the runway environment. At that point I killed the engines and feathered the props to reduce chance of a fire if I were to hit the runway belly up. Managed to land it safely and just sat there on the runway thinking it's 3 a.m. I almost died. And I'm making $24,000 a year for this. That wraps it up. Alright folks, follow for more stories with Frank.